We talk social contracts and player etiquette today on Dungeon Craft.
Deathbringer here. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and sign up for the Deathbringer RPG newsletter below.
Welcome to Dungeon Craft. I am Professor DM, and this channel is about all tabletop role-playing games and crafting. If that's what you're into, you want to subscribe and click the bell icon. We've got a lot of great videos coming up, including Hack with Impunity, the Ultimate DM Screen, and how to paint the Deathbringer mini. So make sure you subscribe. This past weekend, I was working on my own game, Deathbringer, and I was thinking a lot about player etiquette and the social contract. Great games like Knave 2 and Cairn began by delineating what a good game master should do and what good players do when they're at the table. And I was thinking about that, and I came up with 10 rules for player etiquette, and I broke them into 3 sections: what you do before the game, during the game, and after the game. Now, I'm not saying everyone should use these. I'm saying this is what I do, so take it with a grain of salt. So before the game, number 1, plan to arrive on time, and if you have to cancel, let the game master know in advance. Yes, life happens, things pop up, and emergencies occur, but don't be the guy that arrives 20 minutes late to every session. Be considerate of the other players. They may have traveled long distances, rearrange their schedules, arrange for childcare, so they could be there on time, so respect that. Do your best to arrive before the scheduled game begins. And if you're going to arrive late or miss a session, let the game master know as soon as possible so they can plan accordingly. Yes, emergencies happen, but unless you're an emergency room surgeon, that should be exceedingly rare. Number 2, bring something. Beer, pretzels, little box of Entenmann's, something. You don't just walk in with a pizza or a foot-long hero or tacos and start feeding yourself. If you bring tacos for everyone. I said this in another video and people just freaked out. They're like, don't you understand that some people can't afford it? It's like you spend $180 on books, but you can't afford a $2 bag of pretzels or a bottle of Mountain Dew? What do you do when you're invited to a barbecue or a pool party or something? You go empty-handed? You don't bring macaroni salad or something? You just show up and like, hey, Stan, I'm here now, start grilling. I understand if you're 16 or 17 or you live in Thunderdome, but if you're a member of society, if you're invited somewhere, you bring a little something. It's not just part of the game code, it's part of the fabric of our society. Number 3, prepare in advance. Update your character sheet. Make a note of any new special abilities or spells. Do this between sessions, not at the start of the session. You don't hold up the game while you update your character. 4, make an interesting character. The best characters fit into the game master's concept of the world and fit into that framework. If I tell you the new campaign is going to be set in Three Musketeers, France, you don't show up with a half Aasimar, half Dragonborn, dual class, anti-paladin, glamour bard. In my Reviled Society Supercut, I talk about my player Veronica. She created a rogue named Gretchen who had lost the deed to her family farm gambling with a noble. And now her sisters have been pressed into servitude, and her goal was to earn enough money to buy back the farm and to free her sisters. That's a great character because it's not just interesting for her to play, it's giving me plot fuel for future scenario ideas. Now that's before the game. What do you do during the game? We're going to get to that in a second. But first, a word from our sponsor, Battle Zoo Bestiary Elemental Storm from Roll for Combat. This book features over 150 new monsters with great art and stat blocks, and you could get it either for D&D or for Pathfinder. The best part is these monsters are original. You've never seen them, so you can spring them on your players and they're not going to know what's coming. Let's face it, you need new monsters because your players are cheaters. They're reading the monster manual, trying to probe their weaknesses on D&D Beyond. I wouldn't trust them with my pet. You got to stay one step ahead by springing new monsters on them. Monsters like the treacherous telekinetic hand, the necrosis engine, and the Maleficent hive. Plus you get a new archetype, the monster hunter, and rules for killing monsters, skinning them, taking their guts, and turning them into armor and weapons. Plus they have a ton of maps and over 500 animated monster tokens as well. No one else is doing that. Check it out at kickstarter.rollforcombat.com. That's kickstarter.rollforcombat.com. 5. Be attentive. Put the cell phone away. Listen to the game master and pay attention when the other players are going, not just when it's your turn. Take notes to show you're actively listening. Jot down names of people and places. Here's a hint. If I took the time to give the NPC a name, that's because they're important to the plot. 6. Be considerate. Know your character's spells, powers, and special abilities. And think about what you want to do before it's your turn. And have a backup plan, just in case the game master tells you the spell you were planning to cast won't work. Remember, there are other players waiting to take their turn, so you want to take your turn as efficiently as possible. Another thing you want to avoid is breaking off from the rest of the party to do your own solo adventure. A skillful game master can handle that, like once in a while, get you back with the rest of the party as soon as possible. But we have those players, I call them the serial side questers, like the party wants to go left and they're going to sneak off and go right. And the problem is you got 4 players over here in this section of the dungeon and 1 player in this section of the dungeon, and now this player is taking just as much time as these 4 players. There's also the players that want to go on shopping expeditions. I'm not sure why this is a trend. Now, if your whole group loves shopping, I guess that's okay. It's a little weird for me. Malls to me are a living hell, but whatever. But you don't monopolize the game master's time trying to find a dagger that's +1 better than the one you've already got. If you want to do that, text the Game Master between sessions. I'm not saying you should never split up the party. If I'm running a mystery scenario like Call of Cthulhu, I frequently have the party split up into multiple groups. Totally cool. I'm talking about habitually going off on your own and monopolizing the GM's time. A great player wants the other players to have a great time. 7. Initiate the action. Your character is the protagonist, so protag. Don't just sit there waiting for the Game Master to tell you a story. That's very passive playing. You want to be active. Your job is to make the story happen. If the Game Master provides you a hook, by all means take it. Like if a townsperson says, "We're being attacked by werewolves," it's your cue to investigate that thing. You don't go to a different town. But the Game Master doesn't need to have a hook. It's not required. What is required is that you do something. Talk to an NPC, kick down a door, do something to keep the game moving. We've all had that group of players that rolls into town and you ask them, "What do you want to do?" And one guy's like, "I want to find a thieves guild." And another one's, "I'm going to talk to the locals and the innkeeper, see if I can acquire any rumors." And then one guy's like, "I'm going to sit in my room and read a book." And then later the player complains saying, "There wasn't anything for my character to do." It's not the Game Master's job to think of stuff for you to do. It's your job to actively engage with the game and do stuff. For a long time, even up until recently, I really tried to think of cool moments for each of the players, give them a chance to shine. But I've recently come to the conclusion, after all these years of playing, that that's just too much work, and I'm doing enough work. All the players have to do is show up and pretend to be this imaginary person. The least they can do is meet me halfway and actually do something. The players are the actors. The Game Master should be reacting to whatever it is they do. Which brings me to 8. Treat the Game Master as a collaborator, not an enemy. The Game Master may play the enemy, but their job is to create challenging situations. Don't argue with the Game Master or blame them when things aren't going your way. Instead, help the Game Master by looking up rules, paying attention to clues, take notes, remember the names of important NPCs, follow up with plot threads, suggest scenario ideas that'll help you explore your character, while also exploring the wider world. 9. Roll with it. You gotta have a good sense of humor. Don't whine when the dice break against you. I've had some classic moments at the table where the players rolled a natural 20 just when they needed it. But I've also had great moments where no one could roll over a 5. I ran a game of Paranoia like that recently where the players couldn't hit the enemies and they couldn't hit them. They were blowing up equipment and innocent people. It was fantastic fun. Like Rudyard Kipling wrote in the poem, "If, treat triumph and disaster just the same." Winning and losing in a role-playing game are largely illusions. It's what you make of them. I've had great scenarios where we couldn't succeed and the villains beat the hell out of us. If that happens in your game, that's okay. Plot your revenge for the next scenario. And 10. After the game, thank the Game Master. Tell them you appreciate all their planning and hard work. And offer to help the host clean up the play area and throw out any trash, like those broken taco shells on the floor. The Game Master and host will appreciate it, and you'll be invited back. At least, that's what I think. What do you think? Share in the comments below. Also below, you'll find links to the quick start rules of my game Deathbringer and the Deathbringer newsletter, as well as Patreon. Patrons get tons of extra video content, and thanks to all the patrons who made this content possible. Thanks for stopping by. Until the next time, may all your rolls be 20s.
Deathbringer again. Listen to the nerd. Bring tacos to the game and leave the vegetable platter at home. Now, click on the Reviled Society coming up next.